Today, Ginger is still using her presentation skills to sell, motivate, and inspire. Ginger's life has taken some interesting twists and turns, from being chosen Miss South Dakota, USA in 1977 to winning the title of Brookings City Councilwoman in 2005. She holds a Master of Science in Journalism from South Dakota State University and a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication from the University of South Dakota. I think we have someone here who used to work there. She was a television news anchor and reporter at Kello TV and a producer for South Dakota Public Television. She then started her own marketing and media production company, TV Productions, Inc., in Brookings, where she was a writer, producer, and on-air talent. She has won more than 200 awards for excellence in the field of communications. She has worked in the financial industry as a business development executive, in the nonprofit arena as a development officer, and in the economic development sector as an adjunct professor in mass communication. Well, that's a lot. And I think it is because of your positive mindset and creativity and a way to connect. So we'll all be enjoying that. So please help me welcome Ginger.
Well, thank you so much, Olga, for that wonderful introduction. And it's so wonderful to meet all of you. I love the idea of this club. And maybe in the future, I could perhaps join you all as well, because you can be a member of this club, of course, as well as your home club, right? So yeah, that would be great. And a little bit about, so you heard about my background in general, a little bit about my Rotary background. Who was it? Gail, did you say you'd been a member for 35 years? I'm at 34. So almost there. I became a member in 1989. And I became a member because I was asked to apply for the group study exchange to India in 1989 and was selected for that. So we spent, at that time, it was 6 weeks in India and Nepal. The highlight of that trip being that we met Mother Teresa. And that is an experience. Rotary has given me so many experiences that I owe so much to Rotary. I could never pay back what they have given to me in terms of opportunities, and especially travel. If it weren't for Rotary, I'm not sure I would have traveled very much at all. But after that, I applied. I was a member of our group study exchange committee, district committee, for many, many years, and was chair of that committee. Then I was chosen as a team leader to France. So I took a team to a district in France, and that was amazing, as you might expect. And I became club president, the first female club president, in 1999-2000, and was able to go to the International Rotary Convention in Singapore. And so it's just, all of those experiences have enriched my life so much. Back in 2019, they were asking for people to apply for, folks in our district to apply for the Friendship Exchange. Originally, it was going to Italy. And I thought that sounded wonderful. They could practically say it went anywhere, except Russia. And I would probably accept going there, because you know it's going to be fantastic, because the Rotarians that host you are so incredible and enthusiastic. Well, I don't know what happened with Italy. I'm not on the district committee for Friendship Exchange, but anyway, so then they asked, well, instead, how about Sweden? So sure, that sounded great. I didn't, other than there are quite a few immigrants from Sweden in this area, really didn't know that much about Sweden. So was very excited about going. We were supposed to go in 2020. Of course, I don't have to explain why we didn't go in 2020. Then we were supposed to go in 2021. COVID was still a threat. And so then finally 2022 came around and we were able to take the trip. The interesting thing about our Swedish hosts is that they started planning for us in 2019, and they kept meeting every quarter to continue to plan our exchange over the course of almost 3 years. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say, when they were coming back here, we put their program together in about 2 months. And so, however, you'll find that that this particular friendship exchange was quite unique. And by the way, in case you're wondering why I'm dressed so casually, this actually is a T-shirt that says Sweden in Swedish. So that is why I'm wearing this. And this is a background of one of the yards of one of our host families that I'll tell you about in just a little bit. So so there were 10 of us, as there typically are, at least from what I'm familiar with. This is my first friendship exchange. And so there were 10 of us, 4 couples and 2 singles. And there were 10 then Swedish team members who were going to come to South Dakota then a few months later. And so instead of typically, as most of you have been on an exchange, realize that you go from town to town and you have a different host family in each town, and you stay for 3 or 4 days, and then you go on to the next, and then you kind of tour around the district, and after about 10 days you've had your exchange. Well, this particular group decided that they were going to travel with us. And so, yes, we went to different clubs, but they were all representing different clubs. And all 10 of them traveled with all 10 of us all the time. And it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. They had all gotten to know each other over the course of those 3 years that they had been planning. And they had traveled throughout their district, staying with each other and getting to know each other. And so logistically, I think it's probably quite difficult to put that kind of thing together, but it made it a really, really special experience. So I'd like to go ahead and share my presentation with you. Whoops. And let's see here. Whoops, actually, I can just go here. Oh. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Minimize that. Okay, so the exchange was actually for 10 days, June 19th through the 28th. Just a little sidebar, my husband and I decided to go early and do some touring in Europe for 10 days prior to that. And so we were gone a total of about 3 weeks. Some people stayed after the exchange. They arrived there on the 18th and then went on to Norway. A lot of folks went on to Norway or to other areas of Sweden. So just a little bit about the demographics of Sweden. You'll see in the little red circle, can you see my mouse? Mm-hmm. That most people, when you think of Sweden, you think of Copenhagen. I'm not Copenhagen. You think of Stockholm. Now I've got Denmark on my brain. So you think of Stockholm, but we started at the second largest city in Sweden, which is Gothenburg. Overall, Sweden has about 10.4 million people. The size of it is a little bit bigger than California. They have the 12th highest per capita global income. So a lot of times you'll be hosted by Rotarians who typically are fairly successful, as you know, but this was beyond successful, some of these folks, and it was just mind-boggling. But they are very successful. A lot of people in Sweden are very successful. Of course, you're familiar with a lot of the corporations that are based in Sweden. Of course, IKEA and Volvo and AstraZeneca are just a few of those. And the other thing about Sweden that's really impressive is that they've had 200 years of peace, which is a world record. And it just feels peaceful to go to Sweden. It just is kind of a dream come true. So we flew, as I mentioned, into Gothenburg, and this is their district. So Sweden, Stockholm is going to be over, a ways away. Gothenburg is also on water, and you'll see most of the areas as we traveled were a lot of fishing villages and things like that. So so we went from, first of all, all of those of us, not all of us, there was one couple missing, but met the night before we were supposed to start the exchange. We had all arrived in Gothenburg, and we met down the street from the hotel, and enjoyed some beverages and some friendship, and got to know each other, because we had only actually met together once before, very much unlike our Swedish hosts. So you see the second red dot is where we went to on Sunday, June 19th. Our host picked us up at the hotel, and we went to a village called, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, called Edgechaw. And we went to Torleif and Stina's home. Now Torleif was a computer genius of some sort, and he built a software program for the hardware industry and sold it to Snap-on Tools. So they had a beautiful home. In fact, they had about 5 homes that they owned all next door to them and behind them that were, and this was their vacation home, mind you. And then, and I'll show you when we went out on their boat and things like that. So we had lunch there. This was the front of their house. They just built this. They tore down what was there, and they built this a few years ago. And this is a unique piece of architecture within their home. A lot of Swedish homes, and perhaps Danish and Norwegian too, have fireplaces like this. And so they had one recreated in their home. And then this is table. Everybody seemed to have a big enough home, of course, or else they wouldn't have hosted us, to be able to seat 20 people at any given time. So that was our introduction. We had fish chowder, and it was delicious. Of course, in Sweden, and especially in the areas near the water, we had a lot of fresh fish, and it was just delightful. This is behind Torleif and Stina's home. This was the home where 2 of us couples stayed. There were several bedrooms. My husband is up there on the balcony, and fully furnished, beautiful home. And here we're back over at Stina and Torleif's. This is their view from their balcony, looking over at the sea. And you'll see down here a little ways, you have to walk just down on the rocks a ways, and this is where their sauna is. A lot of people have saunas that are right on the sea, and so they like to get, to heat up in the sauna and then run out and jump in the cold water of the sea. So here are a few of us in the sauna, and then, can you see that everybody, they're hiding their beer cans for the most part, because there was quite a bit of indulging going on. And this is then they would run down to this area and jump in the water. And I guess they thought that was fun. I don't think it's so much fun, especially when you see all the jellyfish that are in that water. And I'll show you those in a little bit. Oh, look, jellyfish. So they're fascinating to look at, and all the white ones were harmless, but they said every so often, if you saw a red one, they're very poisonous, and that was enough for me to not want to go in the ocean. So here we are that evening at the boathouse, and they had kind of a buffet set up that was they had, it was a lot of salmon and fruit and other types of salads and things like that, and a lot of wine. And so we had a wonderful time in the boathouse, getting to know our guests on this first day of the exchange. So the next day, we took this is Torliff's boat. And so he took a few of us out on a boat ride and we had a lovely time. We're all anxious to go back and visit him because he just custom ordered I think he said a 52-foot sailboat that he's going to take possession of in April. And so we all hope to go back to Sweden and sail on his 52-foot sailboat. And just kind of nice picture, from the dock, looking at some of the other boats that are moored there. So that day we drove to a ferry and ferry terminal and at Tuvasik, and got on the ferry and went to Carrington Island. Carrington Island is spectacular. Only about 100 people live on the island year-round because it takes about 45 minutes by ferry to get there. There are virtually no trees on the island. It is all rock. So that's why trees don't grow very well. This is a picture of our entire group, all the Swedish hosts, as well as our team from the United States. Now you'll notice, see, this is kind of, beauty queen kind of pose where you have your shoulder back and your hand on your hip. And as we go on, you'll see in the pictures that I was teaching them all to do that. And it became kind of a joke, actually. This is another picture of the island that we were on in Carrington. And then we went to lunch at Pettersson's Krog, and it was so delicious. And of course, the view wasn't bad either when you sat inside and looked out at the sea. This is what I had, and it was a piece of cod. Cod is very popular there, of course, and a lot of boiled potatoes, which is great. But the cod had baby shrimp on top, and then this is freshly grated horseradish and dill, and then it was served with a brown butter sauce. So it's getting towards dinner time, isn't it? And it's making me hungry. It was one of the best meals that we had over there. This is what my husband had. It was an open-faced shrimp sandwich that was just incredible as well. As you can see, I really like taking pictures of food because that next to the people, I think that, and of course all the sites and things like that, and the history. Food is, brings us all together, and it's so much fun for me to go back and look at those memories of the food that we ate. So here we are at, there was a Rotary Club welcomed us to provide a program, and so we had a lot of crawfish at that particular one. Only problem being that the crawfish, when you open them, tend to squirt out. Those of you who have opened crawfish before, and they were all, they had their shells on. So we were fairly dressed up and then trying to crack these shells with crawfish juice spurting all over. The next day, we traveled from, so we had stayed that night in Edgewood Hall, and so the next day we traveled to Kungshamn, and we went by car, and I was fascinated to see hay bales that were wrapped. And I didn't know what they were. They of course looked like great big pink marshmallows. And I said, "What is that?" And they said, "Well, they're hay bales." And I said, "But they're wrapped in pink." And they said that is to recognize breast cancer. And they have different colors to recognize different types of diseases. So I hadn't seen that before. I thought that was very interesting as we went by the Swedish countryside. So here we are at, I don't know how to pronounce it, probably Lysekil. And we visited, and that was across the bridge from here. So this was, one of those turnoffs where you could take a picture with something scenic in the background, the scenic overlook. That's what I'm trying to think of. And this is my husband, Jay, and I. And then after we all got our pictures taken, went across the bridge and went to, had lunch, and then went to an aquarium over there. So here's the aquarium. I'm going to see if hopefully this video will run. This is one of the most interesting critters we saw in the aquarium. Now look at that. Does it look like he's got little eyes and little legs? I'll burn that one more time. So it's some type of a ray. And I just thought that was so cool. So after the aquarium, we just walked around the island a little bit. We took pictures with this in the background because we wanted to pretend that that was the boat that we arrived on. But it just shows you that how much money some people have. I don't know who this was. I don't know if it was somebody famous or just somebody rich, but it was their private yacht, and it was quite spectacular. So they also had a public sculpture project that they featured on this particular island. And one of the sculptures was this bed that did not come from IKEA because we didn't have to put it together. And it was made of cement. And so it just looked like a good photo op for us to take a moment and just relax on this sculpture.
Ginger, was that sculpture project a Rotary project by chance?
It was not a Rotary project. Thank you for asking, though. Good question. All right, so after that, we drove to Robert and Noelle's summer home. We had time for some fika. You probably have heard of fika, which is Swedish for coffee and cookies or pastry and snacks. And so we enjoyed some coffee and cookies, took a walk around their house, and then we had dinner at Robert and Noelle's. And oh, excuse me, on the way we stopped to see some history that the Vikings had. They had repainted, they painted over them so you could see them, of course, well, but they all were symbolic of boats as well as people and that kind of thing in the different directions. It was really interesting. So here we are at Robert and Noelle's home, and she put on quite the spread too. You'll see a little bit later that the linens that are on this table are from a linen factory that we visited a few days later. They make beautiful, of course, linens, and she served us. We started out with this cold beet salad with goat cheese, walnuts, and honey. And over here is one of the Swedish Rotarian's wife, and I showed up at the party wearing the same thing. So that was kind of fun. We didn't care. That's not a big social faux pas in my mind. This is the next night and what we ate at Robert and Noelle's that night when we started with this salad was the most amazing duck served with a red wine reduction with fig. So that they made, they'd been reducing the red wine sauce for like 12 hours or something crazy like that. So creme brulee for dessert, it goes on and on. If we hadn't walked so much, I would have come back 30 pounds heavier, I'm sure. The next night we did have seafood, and of course she brought out all of her seafood themed plates. I get the impression they must entertain quite a bit because they had such beautiful spreads for any occasion. Here we are just having a great time. We'll get to the point later where I'll show you where we start singing at one of our dinners. here we are. None of us were very shy about drinking. It was so funny because Robert, and Robert is over here on the far left side. After we ran out of bottles of wine that were in the house, he kept going out to this shed and bringing back more bottles and more. And I can't tell you how many times. I don't want to sound like we're complete lushes, but you know, when in Sweden, after all, we didn't want to insult our hosts, so we drank a lot of wine and we toasted a lot and said "skål" a lot. So dinner that evening, as I mentioned, was seafood, and it was salmon and shrimp over risotto. And this was an herb soup, which was great. I've never heard of an herb soup before. And then an orange sorbet with strawberries. Robert and Noel also have a sauna on the ocean. So you have to go walk over quite a few rocks. And then the stairway, you can see here with the dark wooden area, and then kind of a, I don't know, rocky stairway going down to the sauna. This one was a wood-fired sauna. The other one was not, let's see, I think it was electric. It wasn't wood-fired. But it was, nevertheless, it was beautiful, and a number of people took a sauna at Robert and Noel's. And they also had a traditional outdoor hot tub, and the hot tub was also wood-fired. And somebody was in it one night, and they said, "Gosh, it's getting kind of hot." Well, the temperature can go up. You know, that's a problem when you've got wood-fired things, because you've got to really pay attention to the thermometer, and it had gone up to like 109 degrees. So, so they were kind of starting to boil. So let me move this down. Next stop was up here in the northernmost part of the district. And as we drove along, we saw a lot of coastal villages with histories, of course, of fishing. All the rock that used, you know, when we looked at the sauna over here, all of this rock is a lot of granite, and a lot of the wealth that comes from this area were from those who were able to mine some of this and build structures out of it. And so that's, you know, so they used the rock very wisely there. And we, then went to a town called Safle. And so each of these is where, you know, so this is where Anne-Marie, who is another Rotarian from the Safle Rotary Club, hosted us. And she owns a lot of real estate, including a bed and breakfast. So we were able to each stay in a room at her bed and breakfast. This is the backside of her B&B. I think this, my slide got a little bit out of order, but this moose is Sweden's animal, and you really had to watch when you're driving, because there are a lot of very curvy, narrow roads, and moose will be, you know, there are moose crossings, but they don't necessarily pay attention to where they're supposed to cross, of course. So there were, you know, there are quite a few moose versus car accidents there, and the cars are much smaller. They all drove luxury cars. They all had a Mercedes or Audi or the like, but they're narrower versions of ours. The day that we arrived on at Safle happened to be my birthday. And in addition to being my birthday, it was actually Jay's and my wedding anniversary also. And so our host surprised us with these cakes, these little cakes that have a marzipan frosting or icing over it. And there were layers inside, and there were a number of different flavors of cakes. And then we had some, you know, so this was kind of our fika. And then we drank champagne with it when we were done with our coffee. So this just happens to be the view from where we're sitting. Isn't that incredible? And this is a canal that goes, that joins two bodies of water, but because it's a residential area, they have to, there's a speed limit, and they can't go beyond like 5 miles an hour or something. So it was very calm and very beautiful. This was June 23rd, like I said, on my birthday, and it was, and you'll see in the next few slides that the next day we're going to celebrate the summer solstice, and that is a really, for those of you who know Scandinavia well, that is a huge celebration, and they purposely planned the trip during June so we could be there during, it's called Midsummer Fest, and of course there, it's because it is light, it never gets dark. But it gets dark and stays dark, of course, a lot of the winter. So they're very happy when it's light all night, and you just lose track of time. This might have been at 11 o'clock at night. It was really something. This was Jay's and my room at the bed and breakfast. Everybody had a different themed room. Here is Jay. Once again, this is one of the cakes that they made for us for my birthday and our anniversary. And then up here is some homemade wine made out of some kind of bark from some kind of tree. The next day, we walked along this unique aqueduct and went to a canal museum, and saw these locks, which was, very interesting to me because some of you, I suppose, especially over near the Mississippi River, have seen locks a lot, but this was new to me. And so they were navigating these boats through the locks to get from one area to another. So we watched in fascination at that. Whoops, sorry. Let me try that again. You see that woman with the pole? So that's his wife. And one of our hosts was telling us that they call it like the, I don't know, the divorce pole or something like that, because if, and this is really not very nice because they don't know why they make the women do it, but they're supposed to be the ones to keep the boat from slamming on the side of this canal. And if they don't, and their boat gets wrecked, then they could be headed for divorce. And lunch, so I had a salmon salad with some cheese and hard-boiled eggs, and it was great. Jay decided he'd try a steak, which he said was very, very good. And the cuts of steak that they serve in Europe are, for the most part, different than the cuts of steak that we have here. This is a typical breakfast of eggs, hard-boiled eggs, cheese, yogurt, juice, and herring, a lot of herring. So we went to lunch one day at a country club, and we were served Swedish meatballs. Now, at this particular restaurant, this is what their Swedish meatballs look like. So they're not round and look like balls like we think they do, or like they serve at IKEA, but they are flatter, more like hamburgers, like thick hamburgers. And this was covered by a lighter cream sauce, and it was served with lingonberries, again, like IKEA does, and fried potatoes. It was excellent. Now, later, we were served more Swedish meatballs at a different restaurant, and this is what they looked like. So these were more like balls. They're more of a rich brown sauce over mashed potatoes. So the midsummer celebration that is it's particularly on Friday, it's the whole weekend, but on Friday in particular is when they have the celebrations. And it's the Friday that's closest to the summer solstice. So in this case, it was June 24th. And they have a symbol of midsummer that looks like this. You'll see as they erect it. Some people say it's kind of a fertility symbol because you can, as you look at it, you can see why they might think that. But here's them. This is kind of a parade into into a park, and then they're going to erect this symbol. Whoops. Once again, I don't know what to do with that. So then you'll see they have a folk band playing music, and then they have Swedish dancers. And then they start dancing around this. I mean, it's not a maypole, but it's, you know, kind of in a sense, something kind of similar to that. So here are the Swedish dancers. And later that evening, we went back to the bed and breakfast and had a traditional midsummer buffet at Anne Marie's at what she calls Villa Billerud, which is the name of her bed and breakfast. And so one of the first things you do when you gather is you play some games. And then, but first, this guy who's like a certified pyrotechnic technician wanted to kick off the ceremonies with this. And then everybody gets together and they do this dance called the Little Frogs. Let's see if I can get it to go. Oh, maybe oh, here we go. So if you can only imagine 20 of us singing this song about the little frogs. And this is what they learn at a very young age. Like, you know, little kids learn this and it's tradition to sing it on midsummers. And they're, you know, as you can see in the English translation, no ears at all, no ears at all. They lost their little tails and they go quack, 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 quack. So yeah, it's silly, but fun. So this is us doing some more midsummer games around a tree. And then some of the traditional food that they served these were moose meatballs. And of course, we had some salmon, boiled potatoes, and then this is schnapps. And in addition to people either drinking beer or wine, everybody got a little bottle of schnapps. And when the designated midsummer celebration person said so, we had songbooks and we would sing a song and then take a shot of schnapps. And of course, this went on through the whole dinner, and that all the different schnapps were different flavors. Mine happened to be kind of a blackberry, which was really good. Some people's, you know, maybe a little bit different. And these are the songbooks that we sang out of. This was the dining room of the bed and breakfast. This was our breakfast, quite elegant. Here we are at the linen factory that I talked about a little bit earlier. And these are some of the machines that they weave the linens on. And it was Sunday, so they weren't working, but they just let us go back there and wander around and look at the machines. Like, how trusting is that? We could have just, you know, taken scissors and cut all the threads off or something, but obviously we're Rotarians, we wouldn't do that. So then finally we went back down to Gothenburg, and actually our last hosts were in Kungsbacka, and this was their home. This was their swimming pool, which is very cool because they can use it year round because it has this sliding wall ceiling that slides over and then it's heated. We visited a very interesting castle. There's one of the tours. This was the very first shower that ever was installed in Sweden. And then this was a sunken bathtub. Anyone want to guess what this is? Okay, it's one of the very first hair dryers, and it's kerosene powered. And so the woman would sit on this chair and lay her hair back over this, and the kerosene heat would dry their hair. Some of the beautiful grounds of the castle. This was a horse-drawn vacuum cleaner that they would take up to the walls of the mansion and then and vacuum. And these are the different attachments to that horse-drawn vacuum. This is our whole group along with the district governor. Now watch, see the elbows? We're getting there. This is our final day speaking to a Rotary meeting at our last stop. And here we are arriving. First, we flew back from Gothenburg to Paris and then back from Paris to Sioux Falls via Chicago. And that was the most amazing experience that one could have, I think, ever on a friendship exchange. Thank you. Thank you
so much. Thank you, Ginger.
I'd like to ask a question. I know we're probably close out of time, but how did you get your team together? How did you decide which 10 people were going?
Honestly, it was almost a first come, first served basis, but they were looking for geographic distribution throughout the district. So they wanted to try to obviously get people from Rapid City, from Pierre, Brookings, Sioux Falls, Aberdeen. So if you expressed an interest and you paid a deposit and you were in the right geographic area, you were allowed to go, but it capped at 10.
Yeah,
Other
great
questions?
question, Deanne.
Yeah.
How about we do one more question and then we will have to wrap it up
Yes,
just
Sherry.
in respect of time.
Has the team from Sweden visited you?
Yes, they visited in September.
Oh,
And then they spent 10 days in our district, and it was so wonderful to see them again because we had gotten to know them all so well over those 10 days. So we started them out in Rapid City, and then they came across the state and ended up in Sioux Falls.
right.
Thank you.
If
Wow.
if you have other questions and you want to email me directly, I'm sure Olga would be happy to provide you with my email address, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you might have. And if you haven't taken a friendship exchange yet, I would highly encourage it. It is amazing. And thank you again to Rotary for the wonderful travels that I've been able to experience throughout my Rotary career.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I took some notes. It's a lot easier to do this on the computer than in a room where you're having lunch and not bringing a notebook. And just think of it, a pool where you can close a roof so you can still use it in the wintertime, and the different sizes of meatballs, the little frogs, the oh my goodness, the Midsummer Fest, and of course the fika. And John mentioned in the chat, even if you keep an eye on the chat,
I
which
just
is
saw that. It's
Lutzen.
we spent part of our
Yeah.
honeymoon at Lutzen Resort.
It's a wonderful place. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's great. That's awesome.
Oh, good, good. So, my goodness, thank you so much. Oh, and I learned something new that I did not know that you had met Mother Teresa.
Isn't that
Think
amazing?
about
It was-
that, my goodness.
Yes, yes.
All the,
I'll email you a picture of us if you like.
Yeah.
I have a friend who carries it around in her wallet so she can say she has a friend who met Mother Teresa. So yeah, that was, yeah. And again, and the reason that we met Mother Teresa is that our Rotary team visited her orphanage where one of the Rotarians' wives volunteered. And Mother Teresa just happened to come back from, I think, Yugoslavia, where there had been an earthquake. And so the Rotarian said, "Hey, do you want to meet her?" Well,
Yeah.
so we brought her over and she posed with us and wished us Happy New Year because it was like January 2nd, and very, very gracious woman,
Wow.
very spiritual, obviously.
yeah, very, very special. Your Rotary history. So with that, I usually wrap it up with a quote. Found a quote here. The most beautiful things in life are not things, they're people and places and memories and pictures. They're feeling and moments and smiles and laughter by an unknown person.
I love that.
Does that apply? I
Very
thought
true.
so.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, glad to hear. That's the vibe I got. Now, is John still on the call, even though he doesn't have his video on? But John, can you send me the slide that you used a year ago to recruit a president for the next year? So when I was visiting the Brookings Rotary Club, they announced that Dr. Michael Gonda would be the president for the next Rotary year. That was a good reminder for me, but we haven't found a president-elect yet in our small club. And John did a really nice job recruiting last year, as you can tell.
Yeah, I would be happy to send that to you, Olga.
I think we should give it a shot and see how you feel about it. Thank you all. Thank you, Ginger. Thank you, guests and members, for joining. I wish you a wonderful week, and with lots more of these positive vibes that we got today. I hope you can continue with that. And next week, what was our program next week? Ooh, had something fun. Oh, Eric Johnsrud with the North Star Youth Exchange is our program next week. So he will talk about the youth exchange program for the 2 districts in Minnesota. Thank you all. We are
Thank
adjourned.
you.